You can listen to The Front on your smart speaker every morning. To hear the latest episode, just say, "Play the news from The Australian."
From The Australian, here's what's on the front. I'm Claire Harvey. It's Thursday, September 12. 33 people were arrested following violent demonstrations outside a Land Forces military hardware conference in Melbourne. Police will allege demonstrators hurled paint, horse manure and acid at officers, while also blocking roads and committing arson. 54 days to go and the US election has kicked into another gear, with Kamala Harris and Donald Trump facing off in a fiery debate. In today's episode, the best bits from a vice president hoping to make history and an ex-president with nothing to lose.
They have abortion in the 9th month. In other words, we'll execute the baby.
Well, I think this is so rich, coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference.
10 weeks ago, a presidential debate saw Donald Trump hailed as unusually disciplined and Joe Biden end his political career. This time around, Trump was determined to hold the discipline, and Kamala Harris needed to prove she can match the Donald.
I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me.
I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. He talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom.
Abortion, immigration, healthcare, gun control, Ukraine, Israel. On all the big topics, the candidates were prepped and ready to go.
This is a radical left liberal. She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania.
Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away, so stop with the continuous lying about this stuff.
She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now.
This debate was on commercial network ABC, and the rules had been the subject of fierce negotiation beforehand.
No topics or questions have been shared with the campaigns. The candidates will have 2 minutes to answer questions, 2 minutes for rebuttals, and 1 minute for follow-ups, clarifications, or responses. No pre-written notes allowed. Their microphones will only be turned on when it's their turn to speak. There is no audience here tonight.
That last one, the rule about speaking in turn, was introduced following this disastrous display between President Joe Biden and Donald Trump in 2020.
I'm not going to answer the question.
Why would you answer that
because
question?
the question is
the question is Justice, radical left.
Will you shut up, man?
Listen, who is on your list, Joe? Who's on your list?
Right, gentlemen, I think
On Wednesday, it was Harris who couldn't stop interrupting.
Women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow. Wait a minute, I'm talking now. If you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar?
Harris called Trump the former president or Donald Trump or you, and spent most of the debate looking at her opponent.
I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States, and world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace.
Trump called Harris she or her, but didn't glance in her direction.
She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country.
Harris tried to take it to character.
I fired most of those people. Not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person.
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that.
But it was only Trump who wanted to talk about Joe Biden.
Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if he's... Where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
they
here...
threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know. Is he our president? But we have a president,
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
You're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me.
Illegal immigration is the issue Donald Trump likes best. And on Wednesday, he went straight to what he characterised as an uncontrolled crime wave by millions of illegal immigrants.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
One of the moderators, David Muir, sought clarification.
ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well, I've seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is
the people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from television.
But the people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying
manager.
their dog was eaten by the people that went there.
You talk about extreme. This is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election, I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans.
Trump doubled down.
On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that she and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast.
Illegal border crossings reached a record high during the Biden administration until tighter controls enacted in June reduced the inflows. Harris was appointed by Biden to reform the border, but there was no progress for the first 2 years of their term. It's a sore point.
She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, "Oh, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet." That's because she knows what a bad job they've done.
Abortion is the issue that Democrats think will mobilise women across ideological and state lines. Trump appointed judges to the Supreme Court who threw out Roe v. Wade. In the debate, Trump went for Harris's vice presidential candidate, Tim Walz.
They have abortion in the 9th month. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. For 52 years, they've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. This is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years.
Moderator Lindsay Davis intervened.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to President Trump.
Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. A survivor of a crime, a violation to their body, does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body.
Coming up, from Israel to Ukraine and all the way back around. The best analysis and reporting on the US election is at theaustralian.com.au. Join our subscribers now to make sure you're always the first to know. The conflict in the Middle East is an issue where, around the world, politicians are trying to walk a line between two passionate sides. But in America, the president is expected to actually solve this situation.
Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. Because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. We need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out.
President Trump, how would you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up, far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech.
It is absolutely well known that these dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear they can manipulate you with flattery and favors. And that is why so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace.
Trump said he'd be able to solve the other conflict raging out of control, Russia's war in Ukraine.
That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened.
I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Trump was asked about January 6, the riot where, as he refused to concede Joe Biden had won the 2022 election, a mob stormed the Capitol building.
Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace.
Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes or no?
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the President of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say, we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump.
This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
Thanks for joining us on The Front. Subscribers to The Australian also get access to our sister masthead, The Wall Street Journal, with unrivaled coverage of America and the world. Check us out right now at theaustralian.com.au.